So our lesson is going to be about citing evidence, and this is going to be something that is very important throughout the unit and throughout the year. The learning target for this unit is, given a question about the text, students will effectively cite pieces of evidence to support their answer 80% of the time. So my main goal for you is to get you to the proficient level of citing evidence by the end of the unit. And I'm going to tell you exactly how you need to get there and what you need to do in order to get to that proficiency level. What does it mean to cite evidence? Well, first we need to break down the definition of citing and evidence. So citing is mentioning evidence from a text in your writing, and evidence comes directly from the text. It can come in the form of paraphrases or direct quotes, but it needs to come directly from the text. When I ask you to cite evidence, I'm asking you to do three things. First, I'm asking you to introduce the evidence. Then I'm asking you to cite the text. And lastly, I'm asking you to explain your reasoning. So we'll call this the ICE method. Okay, so we're breaking down the ICE method a little bit and starting with introducing the evidence. When I ask you to introduce the evidence, I'm really asking you to use introductory phrases or sentence starters to introduce your evidence. So for example, you might say something like, in the text it states, or the author said, or on page blank it said this. So where those blanks are, that's where your evidence is going to go. Here are a few more examples of sentence starters and introductory phrases. Okay, and then we're going to move on to the C of the ICE, so citing the text. There are two ways that you can do this. First, you can paraphrase. You want to paraphrase by rewording something that was written by someone else and rewriting it in your own words. Another way that you need to cite the text is by using direct quotes. So, using direct quotes is when you use what was written by someone else exactly as it was written. I know that you guys know about plagiarism, so we know that it needs to be inside quotation marks when you put this into your writing. If you don't put it in quotation marks and you don't tell the reader where you retrieved the information, then you are plagiarizing. So make sure that you use those quotation marks and you tell the reader where you retrieved the information in parentheses after the direct quote. When you are putting it in the parentheses, you need to put the author's name and the page number or paragraph number separated by a comma, just like it is here at the bottom in the example. So soda always takes up for me, notice that's in quotation marks, and then in parentheses after that I have Hinton, comma, page 13. That way you can go back and find exactly where I found that direct quote. And then lastly, you need to explain your reasoning. The reason that you need to explain your reasoning is to provide analysis of the text, to tie your evidence back to the main idea of your response, to comment on the evidence, or to make an argument. You can do all four of these things in your explanation. You can do just one of these things. It doesn't really matter. As long as you are explaining your reasoning, that is what is key to that E of the ICE in citing evidence. Okay, so here's the rubric that I'm going to be using when I'm grading your ability to cite evidence. Let's look at the for column over here. So when we're talking about textual evidence, as long as you are skillfully blending, so you're using those introductory phrases, as long as you're skillfully blending evidence from the text by using both direct quotes and paraphrases, you will get that 4. Okay, so when I say skillfully blend, I mean that I want you to be using those introductory phrases. Going down to the explanation of evidence, if it is an insightful explanation or analysis of how the text details support your opinion, then you will get that 4. Okay, so notice the difference between 3 and 4 are the words insightful and clear. So if I feel like you really know what you're talking about here, you'll get that 4. And then the quantity and quality of evidence. You need to provide more than enough and the strongest evidence to support your opinion. So if you give me 10 different quotes, but they're not the strongest pieces of evidence that you could possibly find, then you're going to move over to that 3 column. As long as I feel like you chose the strongest pieces of evidence and you have more than enough, then you will be in that 4 column. Okay, so the pretest question that we had the other day was, according to Stavins, what is a reason for having a suitcase packed? You needed to cite evidence from the text to support your answer. Now remember, I didn't tell you exactly what I wanted for that pretest. I wanted to know what you knew already. So we're going to go through 4 different answers here, and we're going to talk about what's wrong with each one. So we have the novice answer. So this would be somewhere between a 25 and 49% response. So always have a suitcase packed because something bad could happen. Well, first of all, we don't have any evidence here. Nothing is cited from the text at all. There's no explanation. And, you know, there's little or no actual evidence at all. Nothing from the text is here. So then we have the apprentice answer. So this is going to be in the C range, most likely. So Stavins said that the suitcase is proof that you carry with yourself your belongings. Well, we have a direct quote here, but it's not in quotation marks. I'm not telling you exactly where I found it, and I haven't explained my evidence at all. So I'm still staying in the 2 column of the citing evidence rubric. Okay, here is a proficient answer. This is a good answer. It's not a wonderful answer, but it's a good answer, and this is where I want everybody to be by the end of the unit. So the reason for having a suitcase packed is so you can have the option to move away from something dangerous or threatening. Right there, I've paraphrased part of the text. And then I go on to say, in the text, Stavins said, so I have one of those sentence starters there, and then I'm going to use a direct quote. So the suitcase is the proof that you carry with yourself your belongings. Stavins, paragraph 14. I've shown you where to find that. It's pretty straightforward. I've explained myself a little bit, but I'm still not in that distinguished category yet. So a 4 answer is going to look something like this. You can see that up to the suitcase is the proof that you carry with yourself your belongings. Up to that point, you have the proficient answer. When I add everything else at the end, I added more evidence, I added a thorough explanation. That's when I get to that 4 column of citing evidence in the citing evidence rubric. Okay, so our citing evidence assessment number 1, why is the gang important to Johnny? You need to use evidence from the text, the outsiders, to support your answer. Once you finish this, turn it in to me, and this will count as your first formative assessment.